Hello. Compliments of the season. This is December. Christmas is around the corner. And that is the hope for us, Christ in us, the hope of glory. Anyways, my name is Sedi, Sedogon, Sedi's Damlala. Those are my names. Welcome back to Sedi's Diary, where we talk about living and thriving and everything in between that. Boop, boop. Thank you. This year, I started something called Thriving Stories on Sedi's Diary, where I interviewed people, immigrants in the diaspora in Canada for now. It was Canada, people in Canada I interviewed to share their stories so far, how they've experienced as they came to Canada, how they were able to establish themselves, how they were able to navigate the different curves, and just share their victories, challenges, opportunities, and so that everyone hoping to come to abroad, hoping to migrate sometime would learn and just be more exposed and more informed, right? And I was really hoping to get a third person before the year ran out, but maybe I haven't been pushing enough to get a third person. So in the meantime, I'm like, okay, let me just come and share my own story, a part of my story that would help, because I know a lot of people are wanting to migrate. So I'll just share my own story, how I migrated, and hoping that you could pick a thing or two to help you, or maybe help your sister, your brother, just useful information out there. Yeah, so quickly, I came in through the study route. I came to do my master's in Canada. So how I started this process was I had like a list of things, so I had an idea of what I could afford. Thank you, God, for providing for my parents, who were my major sponsors. So I had an idea, like my daddy was very upfront with telling me, this is how much we could possibly afford. So some people do not even have that, which is fine. If you don't have that, I would also talk about that, right? Because it's possible to come with a total sponsorship route, which I tried, but I didn't get in through that route. So yes, my financial limits, I had my, course of study, or courses of study, or courses of interest. Let me put it that way. I had my courses of interest, and I was open to anywhere in Canada. I did not have any preference. I'm like, okay, let me just go and, progress my study. So what I did was I looked at, I did a lot of personal research. I know that that's something people don't like to do right now. They just want someone that will just do magic and they've migrated. Well, really, it's good to arm yourself with information, doing research, reaching out to people to help, but not transferring the entire burden to people. It's something we can actually just do research. So I did research. I was looking out for requirements. I saw that some schools required an English exam, IELTS, and some schools did not. So what I did was, okay, I'm like, how do I minimize cost? I'm really not ready to write IELTS yet. But if this was now, if I was doing this now, I would definitely write IELTS, since competition now is way more than what it was when I was coming, right? So it's what schools could, pardon me. So I wrote to a lot of schools that I saw I had interest in, telling them that I did my high school, secondary school education. I was taught in English. In university, I was also taught in English. I showed proof of my WAEC results that I passed English in WAEC. And there's also a website. I don't remember what it is. If I remember, I'll put it in the description box below. There's a website that lists some schools, and if your school is a part of that school, you can get waived, right? There's no harm in trying. If I had to write IELTS, I would have. I just shot my shots by reaching out to different schools, telling them that, do I need to write IELTS for those schools that required it, right? And I was able to get waiver for some of the schools. So I'm like, okay, IELTS, I don't need to write you. What else do I need to focus on? I need to focus on getting a supervisor, right? Because there are different types of masters, right? I will just talk about the ones that I know. I know that we have thesis-based or research-based masters. We have project-based masters in some school, and we have course-based masters. So if you're doing a thesis or research-based, it means that the bulk of your master's year is spent doing research, and you just take very few courses, like 2 to 4 courses, right? And most times it is funded. Not every time, but sometimes it is funded. So as if there's a route to do a research and not have to pay for fees, why not? So I reached out to so many professors or supervisors in different schools that I saw were doing things I was interested in, just shooting my shots basically and telling them that, oh, I'm interested in your research. I talked about my own self and how my interest and my past experience from undergrad connects to their research and the value I can bring into their research, right? So I did that to a lot of professors. Of course, you will get no's, but we move. I finally got a yes, but the time the professor wanted me to resume wasn't feasible because I was still doing my National Youth Service in Nigeria at the time. So, and he needed someone immediately. He wasn't willing to defer. So eventually, I didn't get that option. So I had to go through the other option. I didn't get like the research-based funding. So I'm like, if I'm not doing research-based funding, I'm not going to sponsor myself to do research, since that is not like really my passion. I was just going to maximize the opportunity, right? So I ended up applying to just 2 schools eventually, based on, I mentioned, my course of interest, finance. Those were my 2 major reasons, things actually, and the ones that have waived IELTS for me because I did not want to write it, right? At the time. If this was now caveat, I would write it, but at the time. So I applied to just 2 schools, and eventually I got one. And for the one I got, it was a project-based, so it's in between course-based and thesis or research-based. In course-based, you just do courses and you're done with school. But the school I got into, they don't have course-based for engineering. They have research-based and they have project-based. So you still do courses, but you also have a project component, which is from like 1 to 3 terms you spend doing your project, right? And most times it is not funded. So even some research based in my school, they were not funded as well. So generally, I feel like from my personal research, I stand to be corrected. I feel like the US is more liberal with scholarships than Canada. Canada, you see a lot of scholarships for PR, you see a lot of scholarships for citizens, but once you're not doing research based, sometimes the scholarships are not as many. You will still find some, but it's just not as, So that's what happened, and that's how I came. So I hope you'll be able to pick a thing or two. So shoot your shots, do your personal research. If you really want research based, reach out to potential supervisors. Taylor, and there's a important thing as well I forgot to mention, statement of purpose or letter of intent, something like that. I'll write the correct thing here that you needed to do. So in that place, all you do is basically sell yourself, anything you've done in the past, just so that the school will see that you have value. Although you're coming to learn, but you still have value to offer. Talk about your past internship experiences, what you learned. Talk about your environment, how your environment has increased your curiosity and challenged you to want to solve something in the world or contribute to something in the world. So I know that as regards application, that is something they always look at your I don't know if it's called statement of purpose now, but I'll write the correct thing as I said, where you just basically sell yourself and tell them how your past has led you to where you are, and how joining the school, or if you're writing that to a supervisor, a potential supervisor, because you also have to write a letter to the potential supervisors. You also have to write to them, telling them how, the same thing I just said, how your past, talk about the mundane things, the big things. If you're in an environment that has environmental pollution, for instance, talk about how that has created a passion in you to, combat environmental pollution, and why that is your interest. Like whatever it is, just connect your story, connect the dots, right? And basically that was it. That's how I came. Those were the steps. Of course, these steps span through months. So it's not like it was a 1 month or a 1 week thing, so keep reading. Tell some people in your life as well, so that they would arm you with a lot of information. We look out for information. Now we even have a lot of people on Instagram and on Twitter as well that just share information about these things. So like just look out for information, reach out. Another thing, I didn't do this because I didn't have anybody. Referral helps a lot as well. So if you know someone in a school doing a research, you can tell the person to put in a word for you with, because I know like more than 2 people that this happened to. How they came in was because they had a friend doing a research, and the friend's supervisor was looking for someone, and so they just said, oh, I know somebody back in my country that is also very good, that this is also the person's interest. So you could tell, people that are doing similar things to you to put in a word for you, and that actually helps as well. So you don't even have to go through all this back journey of writing to multiple supervisors or professors to be your to accept you into their team. So anyways, that is how I came, and that's how I came to Canada. So a big shout out to God for the opportunity. A big shout out to my parents and my family and friends and everyone that has been a part of the journey. If you have more specific questions, if you have like areas you want me to elaborate on, maybe in a subsequent video, please put it in the comment section, and I promise that I would address it as much as I can and to the best of my ability. Yes. Thank you so much. What else? That's it. That's it. Summarizing my steps, I looked out for schools that were doing things that I was interested in, and I shortlisted them. From that, I made another shortlist of those schools, right, based on ability to get a supervisor or not. Meanwhile, I reached out to probably over 30 supervisors in different schools, and I got 1 yes from the 30 supervisors. So aside that as well, I also shortlisted using IELTS, right? So those 3. So my own shortlisting method is going to be different from yours. I don't know what your own factors would be. Your own factors could be more or lesser than mine, right? So this is just to do a quick recap. So I shortlisted based on those factors, and then I looked at the requirements of the school. Are they asking for things that there's no way I can provide those things, or are they asking for things that I can provide, right? And if you're applying and your grade is not, the most convincing, then in that letter that you write, sell yourself and show them how valuable you are, even though your grades are not, the topmost grades. I hope that makes sense. Thank you so much. Please remember to like, remember to share, remember to subscribe. Yes, thank you. Compliment of the season again. It is December. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Anyways, thank you so much. Till see you again in the next video. Keep living and do what? Keep thriving. Thank you. Bye.